China Airlines Flight 642 was on its final approach to Hong Kong International Airport, battling the intense effects of Tropical Storm Sam. Strong winds and relentless rain pounded the aircraft as it descended, causing significant turbulence. Inside the cabin, passengers gripped their seats tightly as the plane shook violently. The loud roar of the rain striking the fuselage, combined with sudden drops in altitude, kept everyone on edge. Outside, visibility was nearly non-existent, and flashes of lightning illuminated the stormy sky, adding to the fear and tension. Despite the severe weather, the pilots remained focused, navigating through the storm toward the runway. But as they broke through the thick clouds, unexpected challenges arose, pushing their skills to the limit. Would their training and experience be enough to land the aircraft safely? This is the story of China Airlines Flight 642. On August 22, 1999, China Airlines Flight 642 was being prepared for its journey from Bangkok to Taipei, with a scheduled stopover in Hong Kong. The aircraft assigned to the flight was a McDonnell Douglas MD-11, a 7-year-old long-haul jet manufactured in October 1992. This particular aircraft had previously operated under Mandarin Airlines, still bearing its original livery despite its recent transfer to China Airlines. Over its service life, the MD-11 had experienced 2 hard landings, one in February 1995 that resulted in damage to the nose gear, and another in August 1997, though subsequent inspections confirmed no remaining structural issues. At the time of Flight 642, the aircraft was deemed fully operational with no outstanding maintenance concerns. Aboard the flight were 300 passengers and 15 crew members, including the same crew who had flown the previous day from Taipei to Bangkok, stopping in Hong Kong en route. They were already familiar with the tropical storm's developing presence in the region. Earlier in August, a disturbance over the Philippine Sea had evolved into Tropical Storm Sam, later intensifying into a typhoon as it moved toward the Chinese coast. By the day of the flight, the storm had reached Hong Kong, bringing record-breaking rainfall, over 616 millimeters, the highest recorded since 1884, and wind gusts peaking at 35 knots near the airport. During the pre-flight briefing, the pilots received updated weather reports confirming the storm's presence over Hong Kong, warning of high crosswinds, turbulence, and restricted visibility. In response to the challenging conditions, the captain decided to take on extra fuel, ensuring the flexibility to hold in a holding pattern, attempt multiple approaches, or divert directly to Taipei if necessary. The additional fuel meant the aircraft would be landing just 200 kilograms under the maximum allowable landing weight, providing extra stability but requiring a higher approach speed. With all preparations complete, passengers took their seats and the cabin crew secured the aircraft. As the pushback tug moved into position, the plane was cleared for departure. Once the engines were started and system checks verified, the captain and first officer began taxiing toward the runway. In command was a 57-year-old Italian captain with extensive experience, including nearly 18,000 flight hours, over 3,000 of which were on the MD-11. The first officer, a 36-year-old from Taiwan, had been with China Airlines since 1989, amassing more than 4,600 flight hours, with nearly 3,000 on the MD-11. After taxiing to the runway, the aircraft was cleared for takeoff. The captain pushed the throttles forward and the engines roared as the MD-11 accelerated down the runway. The takeoff was smooth and the plane climbed to its cruising altitude without issue. For much of the flight, the journey remained uneventful. The cabin crew conducted in-flight service and passengers relaxed. However, as Flight 642 neared Hong Kong, conditions at the airport had significantly worsened. The crew monitored updated weather information from the Automated Terminal Information Service, which continuously provided real-time updates. The latest broadcast warned of severe weather, including strong wind shear, intense turbulence, and low visibility. Winds at the surface were reported from 320 degrees at 30 knots, gusting to 45 knots. Given that the active runway was at 250 degrees, this meant a crosswind component of 26 knots, exceeding the airline's limit for wet runways. The captain, however, noticed the wind direction shifting and hoped conditions might improve before landing. At 6:14 p.m., radar control cleared Flight 642 to begin its descent. Another ATIS update, labeled X-ray, reported winds now at 35 knots, resulting in a crosswind of 25 knots, still beyond the limit. As the aircraft descended, it encountered increasing turbulence, prompting the crew to request a slight course adjustment, which air traffic control approved to help them navigate around the worst of the storm. The captain prepared for an approach to runway 25 left, confirmed as the active runway by the latest ATIS update. However, the first officer interrupted, insisting that they had been cleared for runway 25 right. Trusting his colleague's input, the captain did not question the correction, and they continued their descent as planned. Meanwhile, worsening conditions forced them to activate the aircraft's anti-icing system to prevent ice accumulation on the wings and engines. Passengers could feel the turbulence intensify as the plane was battered by wind and rain. In the cockpit, the pilots received a warning from Hong Kong approach control. A recent arrival had reported a lightning strike at just 400 feet above the ground. Acknowledging the risks, the crew continued their descent. As they neared the airport, they were finally cleared for an ILS, Instrument Landing System, approach to runway 25 left, revealing the earlier runway miscommunication. The crew quickly rebriefed and adjusted for the correct approach. The ILS system, crucial in poor visibility conditions, guided the aircraft along the runway's centerline and descent angle. With visibility still poor and the aircraft now just 1,000 feet above ground, the captain disengaged the autopilot, opting to land manually. However, strong crosswinds required him to use a crabbing technique, angling the nose into the wind for alignment. At 300 feet, a sudden drop in airspeed caught the crew off guard. The first officer called out the speed loss, prompting the captain to increase thrust. This momentarily overcorrected the speed, forcing him to... At 50 feet, the aircraft's automatic throttle system reduced thrust to idle in preparation for landing, but a sudden wind shift caused another abrupt loss of airspeed. As a result, the MD-11 descended to... The captain attempted to flare, raising the nose to slow the descent, but it was too late. The right main landing gear struck the runway hard, collapsing outward. The impact caused the right engine cowling to tear open, destabilizing the aircraft further. The right wing detached, igniting fuel and flipping the aircraft upside down as it skidded across the runway. The plane finally came to rest off to the side, engulfed in smoke and fire. Emergency response teams, already on high alert, reached the crash site within a minute. Despite the heavy rain, flames from the ruptured fuel tanks burned intensely, complicating rescue efforts. Firefighters and airport staff worked quickly, evacuating passengers through holes in the fuselage. The cockpit crew, disoriented by the plane's inverted position, struggled to shut down the engines before exiting through the L1 door to assist passengers. The accident resulted in 3 fatalities and left 50 people with serious injuries. Investigators concluded that the crash was caused by the captain's inability to arrest the rapid descent just before landing. Factors included the failure to notice the decreasing airspeed and the increasing descent rate, along with a reduction in thrust at a critical moment. Additionally, shifting wind conditions likely contributed to the sudden drop in airspeed. Following the incident, China Airlines revised its landing procedures for severe weather conditions and enhanced crew training to improve handling of unstable approaches and high-pressure situations. The lessons from Flight 642 underscored the critical importance of precise decision-making in extreme weather conditions, reinforcing safety protocols to prevent similar accidents in the future.